I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Operations Planning Committee to order at 8:35 on April 19th. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the March 8th meeting.
So moved.
Do I see any, are there any
Second.
edits, corrections, additions? Seeing none?
The only correction I really have, but it's really, it was probably right, is on P and Z, it's called the Heights Crossing, not the Heights.
Okay.
They changed the name.
Probably after this.
Yeah, probably after the meeting, but for the general public, it's the Heights, there was, you can't have the same name twice, and there was a little bit of a conflict, so
Okay.
the name got switched.
Okay. So with that addition,
Yes.
any other corrections, edits? No? Okay, so that was Seth moved.
Jim seconds.
Jim seconded, all in favor?
I would abstain because I
Uh,
was.
Okay, abstentions? Okay,
You can still
Jill.
vote if you believe it's
and
true.
Steve abstaining.
You can still vote if you want.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, next item on the agenda, my report. So on Sunday, helped out over at Selleck's Woods. It was really terrific. My husband joined me, really terrific to see all of the volunteers out there working on cleanup. Earth Day is this Saturday, April 22nd, and I'm sure people will be busy working in their neighborhoods, helping out. On Saturday, April 29th, the Darien Youth Commission and Person to Person will be hosting another food drive. I want to thank Kip Coons for offering his lot. That's where this will take place. It'll be happening from 9 a.m. till noon on the 29th. And if you're able to support, I'll give you a list of things they're looking for specifically. Soups, oatmeal, pancake mix, peanut butter, jelly, canned fruit, vegetables, beans, canned beans, or dried beans, pasta, granola bars, things like that. So thank you to everyone that helped support that. On the 29th also, so this is kind of, this is new news. I've reached out to well, actually all of April is kind of an important month for green in general, right? So we have Arbor Day coming up on the 28th, and the Arbor Day purpose is to plant more trees in the community, while Earth Day's purpose is more to focus on our environment and what we can do to protect that. So this year, in honor of Arbor Day, Eversource is donating approximately 400 trees to the town, to our residents, and we are coordinating with them to best figure out a way to distribute them. So I did literally 2 minutes ago just receive a confirmation that they will be dropping off 400 trees, 100 pink dogwood, 100 white dogwood, 50 witch hazel, 50 arrowhead viburnum, 50 spice bush, and 50 autumn cherry. I'm not sure if that's a bush or a tree. So I've also reached out to the green team. I had a meeting with the chair this week regarding a few things and mentioned this, and I've also reached out to the scouting community. So at this point, we are looking at doing a distribution here at Town Hall. I'm not exactly sure where, but we'll be letting the community know about that. And we're inviting all of our residents to come, and specifically the people that have been most impacted by the clear cutting on the 3.5 miles of train track in town. So that's that will be Saturday, April 29th. Applications for the Great Island Advisory Committee are now being accepted in the Selectman's office. There is a link on the town website under News, and I encourage people to take a look at not only the application, which, Linda, are we able to?
It's a fillable PDF.
It's a fillable, okay, so it is now a fillable PDF, but you can also always print it out and send it in. We're more than happy either way. There's also the advisory charge, if you're interested in a little more in-depth on what the committee will be focusing on. And there's also frequently asked questions, and we will be updating those as we receive questions from the community that seem to be something that we should put out for everybody. They're frequently asked. We'll be updating that list, okay? And I want to put out another request for, I'm sure Jill will want to fill in this a little bit more, but we're looking for 2 members of the community with an interest in serving on the HHR, the Hindley Homes and Royal Committee, to help out on that project. And right now that project is kind of pivoting towards more of the construction side, so we're asking people from the community that might have an interest in serving on that to reach out. Maybe Jill, you want to touch on that a little bit more, what you're
Sure.
looking for specifically? Okay.
Absolutely.
And then yesterday the Board of Selectmen met, and we will be restarting the ARPA committee. And I know that the Board of Finance and the RTM, both of your representatives are no longer on those boards, so we'll be looking for new members from you. And Kate, what are we thinking for timing?
I'd like to proceed next month, to get them going and, see about reallocating the funds. So Seth, we need somebody from F&B, because it was Martha Banks and Jim. We're gonna need, Dan was on, and so was Frank Huck, so we need a replacement for Frank.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, that's what I have. Tracy?
Thank you so much. Thanks, as always, for inviting me. I have an update that Tom O'Day and I are going to give to, it'll be both New Canaan and Darien, and it is next Wednesday here in the auditorium from 7 to 8. So I will keep all my comments brief. I continue to get emails, questions about the 2 main topics are the trees, which I think your update today will be, really well received, and the housing and planning and development issues on some of the bills. So we'll go over that in more detail next Wednesday. And then we are still in the interim between the committees have mostly finished up. We've just got a few more committee meetings where some of the bills are referred, and then sessions start next week. And then just as a note, we had one of our committee meetings yesterday brought up emergency EMT services and education. And while I'm on that call, I mentioned Post 53, and within 2 hours, I had a colleague that came down and we toured Post 53 together. So, shout out to Post 53. They're amazing. And being in there, it just, the amount of volunteers and enthusiasm that is around this is really a pillar for, I don't think every other town could do this, but as we're sitting there, and I'm with both a state representative and a first selectman from East Hampton, and she, there are so many little pieces of things that they do that can be taken out and used maybe in other towns. So
That's great to hear.
another thing to be really proud of here in Darien.
They're having a big 53rd year.
53rd, June
50th
17th, I think, is when he said save the date is for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
People are flying in from around the globe.
Amazing.
There's a guy from Barcelona that's flying in for it.
Yeah, that's really
I don't know
fantastic.
if you want to do another proclamation, but
Yes,
they
well,
got a bunch of those.
definitely we'll do one for that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
My daughter might be there.
Excellent. Okay, and I will say that I did meet with the Commissioner of Transportation, and I did meet with Eversource again. I know Monica and I are doing parallel play on many of these. I'm trying to hit things from the state side, and just knocking away. There is a bill out on in transportation to require DOT to have a net zero tree loss. I think that would be, I would be surprised if it goes through exactly like that, because that would be really hard to do. But I know that there is concern clearly across the state about all the tree loss, and we will be seeing that in session, I'm sure. And that's all I have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jim?
So from the Board of Finance perspective, we, on Thursday, April 6th, we passed a couple budgets, the overall budget, and set the mill rate and so forth, and that's going to move forward for the RTM to approve in early May. There are a couple changes we had, a couple larger changes I would just point out to the budgets. On the Board of Ed side, we increased revenues by our revenue assumption by about $100,000 for one of their grants, which reduced the size of that budget by about $100,000. And their surplus was re-estimated to be up another $140,000. So we increased our estimate of the surplus that they would give back at the end of the year by $140,000. In total, those changes to the Board of Ed budget helped reduce taxes by about $240,000. On the Board of Selectmen side of the budget, there were some adjustments made there. Again, on the revenue side, we increased some of our revenue projections as related to some of these big developments going on in town by about $350,000. That was based on sort of a little bit of a real-time pulse in terms of what's happening with the Palmer's project and timing on a few of the other ones. So that's about $350,000 of increased revenue and therefore decreased taxes that we raised. And on the investment income side, we looked at where rates were, the overall rate environment right now, and the projection for rates going forward, as well as like the opportunities that the treasurer has and how they can most efficiently invest funds. And so our board decided to raise the investment earnings projection in terms of what we would earn there by about $212,000. Those changes together helped reduce the budget by about $570,000. So all in, we approved a mill rate that was up by about 2.3% versus what last year's mill rate was. And I would just point out, because there were a lot of questions that we had around that, is although the revaluation of all the properties in town is taking place now and become effective on October 1st of this year, those new appraisals will not come into effect in terms of the allocation of this year's taxes. So the taxes that residents pay will be based on the current valuations of their home, not the new ones that'll be adopted, if you will, by the town on October 1st. Those will affect fiscal 2025 taxes.
Which is July 1st, 2024.
Correct. So it'll affect the July 1, 2024 payment and the Jan 1, 2025 payment. Other changes, and these were more so timing differences. We approved a $40,000 appropriation for the town and the Roden Heights Fire Department to look at a retaining wall that is in desperate need of some repair and so forth. So we approved that money out of our capital reserve, and we removed about $110,000, which was put in this coming year's budget related to that project. We took that out because at this point there really isn't a sort of accurate expectation in terms of what we think that can be. So while that's an urgent project and we appropriated the money right away to get them started, we didn't feel like it was prudent to sort of tax residents today for that amount when that project could be smaller or larger, and we might anticipate bonding that or using other funds that we have available on the balance sheet.
And you appropriated that because of the urgency for the project?
Yeah, I think when we looked at the reserve that we hold, the common theme over the last few years is reducing reserves that exist in budgets or sit on balance sheets and so forth, so that the general fund is most efficient. We had an amount in there that was more than sufficient to cover it. And I think just looking at looking how close it is to the firehouse and the road and so forth, we wanted to make sure we could start that ASAP.
Right. Okay.
In terms of other things, I would point out just, one of the things that I mentioned at a prior meeting, we did ask that sort of, staff at the town and the school get together and we have a meeting this summer. Ideally, maybe if it's more convenient for the school, we do that maybe right after school gets out. I do think it's it's, I think imperative would be an understatement, that the town and schools get together and we start to think about healthcare, not just looking at sort of what the costs are that pop out in October, we begin the budget season, but I think ahead of time what we could do individually on the two different sides, the school and the town, and what we could do together, and whether or not some type of or form of self-insurance could be prudent.
So that would
But I
be-
do think it would be good if we could have staff work together to set a day, in early July. I don't think it needs to be a large group, but, maybe a couple from the school side, a couple from the town side, 1 or 2 members of the Board of Finance, and if we think there's an advisor that we should bring in, I do think it's imperative that we do that sooner rather than later.
And the focus would only be on healthcare, nothing else?
Well, I think that's the primary. If you look at the speed at which these are going, the costs
Right.
are going up, it's from 10 to 20% if you look at where the projections have been. Now, mind you, we've been able to negotiate sort of last minute some savings and so forth, but I think we need to be thinking long-term,
Okay.
what's the best way for the town to approach this?
That's a good plan.
So, and then, I would just say that we successfully went to market on April 6th as well for the bonding to pay for Great Island, to pay for some other small capital projects, and to pay for the first third of the HHR project. It was a $113 million bond deal, it was extremely well received. We had over 20 different institutions from Wall Street bidding on the bonds. We issued about $40 million of long-term 30-year amortizing serialized bonds at a rate of about 3.6% all in if you look at the TIC. And when we raised some short-term debt to pay for part of Great Island, but also to fund part of HHR, which will eventually term out as that project matures a bit and it starts to break ground. And those short-term funds were raised at around 2.7%. So extremely well received. Our AAA rating in connection with going to market was once again reaffirmed, even on the heels of the entire purchase of Great Island and the HHR and the Oxford School District, school completion or near completion. So, from a financial perspective, the rating agencies commented that we're in great shape, absolutely, and certainly relative to our peers, and we continue to benefit from the fact that Darien is one of a handful of AAAs in the southwestern part of the state, and therefore the demand for the tax-exempt Connecticut names far exceeds the supply, and we benefit from that. So,
With the short terms, is that the difference of 113 minus 40 in terms of bonds?
yes, we did about 70-odd million of short-term. 40 of that was for Great Island. Again, that's 1-year debt that will roll coming up in sometime between January and April of 2024. And then the other portion is about almost 30 million of it that we raised for HHR.
At 2.7%? That's unheard of.
Yeah, and I think the great news, if you look at the fact that we were able to raise debt on the short end at rates that were about 55% of taxable. So that means our borrowing cost was very low, but as we've seen in the current year's budget and so forth, our ability to reinvest those, it's a very attractive environment. So when you think about things like HHR, where we're raising money today, you're going to spend it over time, it puts us in a great position financially.
And that's really because of the inverse yield curve, right?
Correct. It's an inverted treasury yield curve,
Yeah.
but it's an upward sloping muni yield curve. So,
Okay.
it's really the best of the two worlds, if you will, on the short end.
Jim, do you have the taxable equivalent for those?
What?
Do you have the taxable equivalent for those two numbers, those two rates? If it was a taxable bond versus tax-free?
Yeah, on the short end, we borrowed at about 55% of taxable, and on the long end, we borrowed at about 85% of taxable rates. But this was all completely tax exempt. We spent time with our bond counsel, and we did not feel that there was any need to bond any portion of the Great Island acquisition cost as taxable.
Right, okay. Thank you for the board for all of their work, and thank
Excuse me.
the finance department as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, kudos to our finance department, Jen Charnaski and her team. Kudos to Munistat, Mark Chapman, who's our financial advisor, and our bond counsel, all of which I would say, at the bequest of a very sort of naggy Board of Finance chair, moved extremely quickly and accelerated the timing by a week, which if you go back and you look on Bloomberg and you look at sort of what happened at rates, you know, we were very fortunate. Their hard work and a little bit of market timing, you know, definitely saved the town about 15, 20 basis points.
Right. Great effort all around. Thank you.
Thanks. That's it.
Steve?
Great. Thank you. Last time we had a great planning zoning meeting. We went over a bunch of stuff that was on our agenda. One of the highlights I want to really touch on is, and it was on the minutes from last week, is we dove deep into the accessory dwelling unit legislation that we're going to do in town. If you might remember, in 2021, we opted out of the state regulation because we wanted to draft our own. We had a meeting, an open meeting of the commissioners in March, and then we drafted a proposal last night. So I think we're coming to a good resolution to put ADUs in town. It's something that the town really wants to diversify our housing plan. They provide maybe smaller units for other people that want to live there. In our town, I think most of them are not going to be rented in the real world, but they're available to that. So, you know, you're going to see apartments or accessory dwelling units in pool houses and garages and things like that. It's something that a lot of the state people have been pushing for years, and we're probably going to have one of the best plans out there. Last night, we also had a special visitor come in, which is Patrick McMahon from Darien Commons. He's the developer of Federal Realty that's building Darien Commons. That project it's essentially full. It should be stabilized by the summer on the residential side. All 16 affordable housing units have been leased and spoken for. I think of the 16 units, there's 8 in the first building. I think all those tenants already moved in. In the second building, the units are already, the tenants are already selected. They've not been moved in yet because there's a process they have to go through for income qualification. The one thing that we've kept our eye on, and maybe a news for the Board of Education, and I think they're going to speak to the Board of Education people directly or administration, there's only about 5 new kids that are in the Darien school system, or in Darien schools living in that project, which is 122 units. When we say school-age kids, they're anywhere between kindergarten and high school. So out of 122 units, those are what we kind of thought it was going to be. And that's what it turned out to be. There are also, I think, 6 kids that relocated from other parts of town. Like, I think one of my son's, you know, classmates who lived in a house now lives in Darien Commons because he helped the family move in. So there's 6 relocates in there. So relative to busing and
So is the total number 11 or?
11, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's for, Steve, that's for both?
That's for both buildings. Yeah, right now, the first building's got 58 apartments in it. That's fully leased and occupied. This second building's got 64 apartments on it. There are 21 of those are leased, plus the other 8 ones are done. So that makes the whole thing 71%. So those numbers could change a little bit, and maybe one of the kids could be a senior in high school, move out by the time next year comes in. But, you know, we've talked about issues about busing and parking and all that stuff. I don't think 6 or 12 kids moves it down that much, and who knows what schools they go to. From where we sit, a lot of that stuff, there's federal housing regulations where it doesn't get really too deep into the weeds. But I know Patrick said he was going to reach out to administration to fill them in on it. The one thing that I think is cool, a lot of the retail stores opened up. The Sweet Greens is on the corner. They have sold like 800 salads, I think, in the first weekend or something like that. I think my family got 6 of those 800.
We have 5.
Yeah, exactly. The other one that's going to open up pretty soon is Seymour, which is going to be the anchor in front. That's a big restaurant in front. Last night, ARB approved a sculptured art something that's going to be in the front of the building to the left of the front door. I think Gregory's Coffee is supposed to open soon. which is the Jewel building, and the building they call that's the black building in the center. Across from that is
The ice
your
cream
favorite,
place.
so the ice cream for Van Leeuwen Ice Cream's gonna open up soon.
Yeah.
And then between those two is gonna be a chocolate chips cookie store.
Chip City.
Yeah, see that? Watch TV last night.
I like junk food.
Nice.
So I think in that whole section, you're gonna have a restaurant, you're gonna have a coffee shop, you're gonna have an ice cream place, and a chocolate chip cookie place, so.
And a salad.
And the salad place is another,
Right.
it's about 30 feet further down. So I think that's the biggest outdoor open plaza area of it. So, I mean, back in the old days when, wives met husbands or husband met wives at the train station, I think you come off the train station, you're sitting there and your spouse walks across the street and says, hey, how you doing? Grab a cup of coffee or something. So I think that might be kind of cool. The other thing they're gonna do, I kind of sort of knew it was coming, but they made it kind of more public tonight, is they're gonna redo the facade and everything of 40 Heights Road, which is the building next door, which most people think as the Citibank building. That's a 2-story retail and office building. The second floor of the office space was occupied by Newark Hospital. That tenant moved out. They want to replace the windows, replace the facade, replace the awnings out front and that, so they kind of sort of match. And between there is the main driveway into the center. The driveway is very active. I think that it's more active and more people are going there than they expected. So they may have to do some traffic calming issues and change a little bit of it when they get into, they're doing another traffic study relative to that. If you've been through the shopping center, I keep going back to the high school, when you go past the front door of the high school, and in the shopping center in front of theirs, you go up and down over a little hump, which looks really fancy. They may put something like that in there. The goal, and I've been saying this for, it's at least 5 or 6 years, is to connect Chase Bank, which is on the corner of Norotan Avenue and Heights Road, all the way with Goddard School, which is on the corner of Heights Road and Hollow Tree Ridge Road, with a sidewalk and a walkable thing, and they're 100% on it. And Monica loves the idea too, and she's gonna help out wherever she can. And they're on top of that. The last thing that they're
So
doing.
then what do you do with the parking that goes in there?
They own Valhalla, and if you've been there now, they rerouted the.
I park on the other side, but that's another.
No, but they rerouted the sidewalk, so when you come from Chase, it goes in front of Chase, it goes in front of Citibank, then
Right.
across the street over that, we just talked about that, then it passes around the garden, then it connects up directly with the front door of Valhalla, and then it goes to the next building, which is where the liquor store is, and where the dry cleaners is, where the cleaning store is, and then it kind of ends, but we're still working on that piece, and that's
Well,
all connected up together.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, we can only control what we control.
Right.
But they're on board.
I'm assuming the answer is yes, but the traffic study will be also looking at both impact and accommodating the pedestrian flow, and specifically thinking about all the middle schoolers that
100%.
get out,
Yeah.
and then the kids in the neighborhood coming up from Hamlin and areas,
Yeah.
okay? 'Cause I think it's-
Patrick's got little kids
Okay.
himself,
Great,
and he's aware of that.
okay,
There's not that many children inside the whole complex.
right.
But, I mean, I've seen plenty of kids that are walking from the far side of the railroad tracks in
Yes.
I-95, crossing over, cutting through to the middle school.
Yeah.
I mean, I think their goal is to get the kids after they come out of
Yeah, school.
middle school,
Yeah,
go right to the
Mhm.
center, go
Cookies.
get yourself a cookie and an ice cream.
yeah,
You can enter from west in the back, right?
There's the
Yeah.
grand staircase that's between Malta Pizza Shop that's gonna open in the summer and Walgreens. It goes up and over, and that basically kind of sort of connects with McGuan Field. And the park or the swings that they paid to demolish on the other side.
yeah. I think you'll probably have heavy traffic, pedestrian traffic from the south too, because there's just a lot of kids in those
Yep.
neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Just with that one driveway.
I think it's, the thing that I didn't really remember that they did do is where Citibank's drive-throughs are, that's one way.
Mhm.
I kind of thought, when we approved it, I don't know, 8 years ago, that was two-way.
Mhm.
But it's one way coming out. Maybe they
Yeah.
do something with that, I don't really
Okay.
know. But they have another
Great.
professionals looking at it again.
Thank you.
which is nice. What else did I want to talk about? With regard, looking at the things from last week, with regards to outdoor dining, yeah, it expired in April of this year, April 1st. Anybody that applied for outdoor dining in our town through P&Z we've seen them already and has been approved. Last night, La Taqueria came in. They did not have outdoor dining, but if you've been back there, there's this little type gazebo type thing, and they're gonna put 16 seats outside. And they're really excited about that, and I'm really excited about that. I've been to La Taqueria a couple times, and it's a good spot. So they'll have outdoor seating. So anyone that still wants to have outdoor dining, they're welcome to come to P&Z to get approved, and they also can, in a lot of instances, in almost every instance, they have to go in front of ARB too to get approval for what they do. I think ARB wants La Taqueria to put planters out there to block the tables, which is nice.
So Steve, just to confirm, anyone that has come before the planning and zoning has been approved?
Correct. And when it came before us and asked for our approval, got approved.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yep. What else did I have on here? Accessory to which, Norotan Heights Shopping Center, which is now, we just mentioned in a minute, it's now called Heights Crossing. That entire project, and this is, I guess, a month ago, this thing, March 8th, in a month, they demolished every single building that's there. So that whole building's been demolished. They did some crushing of the materials on site. There's a couple big piles of chip rock that's there that gets trucked off. It's really flat as a pancake. So maybe your assessed values went down, but they did buy it, so maybe they went up. And they're bidding out the contract to do the construction now. They'll be going vertical in short order. Those guys move fast, and all their financing is already set up. So that is another great thing. They're very responsive too, relative to safety and sidewalks and pedestrian traffic, because there is no sidewalk there. And we'll make sure that it's all safe for the kids that are walking around the neighborhood, and I know it's also close to your house.
Steve, on that, what are they doing for stormwater?
There's not a whole lot of stormwater that has to get put in there, but there's a couple Caltex that land up being, I think they're on the other side, which is on the Edgerton Road side. There was some
One
new.
there now, right?
I'm sorry?
There's a small one there now, right?
There's a small one there now, and there's also a small one near, in the parking lot that's in front of the post office, the new post office relocation.
Right.
That was put in a couple years ago. But all the stormwater, the water, that's the low point is kind of at the base of Edgerton in front of Leary Liquors. That's the low point on the street, so it kind of flows down. But there's definitely a big stormwater management component there. It's not as large as Federal's, which has got, 1.2 million gallons underwater, but it's still pretty significant. But that's great to see that after what they broke ground 3 years ago, and now it's really, really breaking ground. So that's a good thing for the area. What else did I want to with it? The other thing that we have coming out now, Bob Maslin, an attorney in town, has a client that wants to put a building at 7 Sedgwick, which is the old Bank of America branch outside Goodbye Shopping Center. That would be the most, the application which stands now is the most dense property ever to be proposed in the town of Darien at 46 dwellings per acre. It's about a 0.6 acre site, and they want to put 22 apartments on it. The next one that's closest to that is 77 Leroy, which is Pemberton 16, which is only 32 units an acre. That's 16 apartments on half an acre. To get that project done, they've requested 2 text zoning amendment changes to facilitate the plan. If you want to do a zoning amendment change, it's got to be consistent with the town planner conservation and development. And I've not seen any evidence of that at this point. So we'll see where that one goes. They have to go to the architecture review board too. That property sold maybe 2 years ago, has been floating around. But that would be another dense development that would be done in Darien. But it's just in the beginning stages of their application with us.
Steve, didn't they go before ARB a couple of times already?
They went before ARB a couple years ago. They got a negative report.
Right.
Yeah.
In the town of Darien, for the last 10 or 15 years, there's never been a project approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission that has not gotten a positive approval from the ARB. So they, for some reason, I don't know, they said they were not going to go back to the ARB. When we met with them about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we told them they had to.
Okay.
So we'll see where that goes. But that's something to keep, I want everyone to keep their eye on, because we've never seen a project that dense ever proposed in our town. Even the state code, which is some of the bills we're talking about, they're bouncing around 25 units an acre.
20 in Darien, 30 in the bigger towns.
Yeah,
of
this is
60.
proposed at 46
Yeah,
an acre.
that's huge.
Yeah, it's a building up on
Very
stilts with parking underneath it and a flood zone.
Right.
And I think you were there when there was 4 feet of water in the ground floor
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. So we'll
I
see.
think I remember them going through ARB a couple of years ago. I've never seen that meeting.
Corbin District, Buildings 1, which is the end building that's on Old Kings Highway South, is done. Building 3, which is I give the buildings my own names, which is the Bank of America building, which is next to Gopher Ice Cream. That one is going to open, I think, at the end of this month. Bank of America is the ground floor tenant in there. I think there's 4 apartments in, it's called 43 Corbin Drive. That one's all leased. There's 10 apartments in the Bank of America building, which I call Building 3. Those are all leased. I toured those with the developer, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. They're absolutely beautiful. It's a great spot. They've already applied for demolition permits to demo Helen Hansen and the old Compass building and all those buildings to the left. They didn't apply for the demo permit yet for 30 Corbin Drive. There are 3 buildings that are on the, I'm going to call it the east side of Corbin Drive. All the retail tenants that are in the buildings are going to be demolished. They're going to move across the street to the new buildings. The center building, which is, I call Building 2, the ground floor will be occupied first, and then the apartments in there, I think there's 18 or 24 apartments in that building. I don't think those are going to be available till October. They've got, 6 construction crews working there every day. And I think they're focusing on all the commercial space and the apartments inside the Bank of America building. And then once all that stuff gets done, then they can reseal them. All the apartments that are available today have been leased at that project too. So right now, we don't have that many. I think the only ones that are available that are not on the market are the ones that are left at Darien Commons.
Steve, have they shared children stats? Have they shared children's stats with you from
I didn't
Corbin?
ask. That's a good question. I never asked that one.
Okay.
I did promise, I think at one point in time, that I would check on 3 Parklands. I did call that developer to see what the status of 3 Parklands is, and I didn't get a call back yet, so I have to chase him down again. I think that's it for me. I hit most of the highlights. I think we're doing fine. P&Z is getting busy now. They had, I think, 135 applications in the first quarter of this year. And it went up and down, and now it's back up again. So you may see more applications coming through on your end as well, too.
That's good.
There you go. Thank you.
Steve, one last question
Yep.
on ADUs. What's the next step for that draft?
The next step for that draft we have, this is the first draft of the resolution that's going to get added to our zoning code. We're going to get a second draft on this in a subsequent meeting, probably about a month, and then the big thing is a public hearing. Then there's going to be a public hearing on it, which will be announced. And my goal is to get this whole thing done before July.
Okay.
And before the summer break, so the ADU, it would probably be enacted maybe October, August 1st or something like that.
Okay.
And then the other really quick thing, so this would get enacted, and some of the things, we're trying to legalize some of the existing ADUs there. I wanted to count people that have pool houses and apartments on their property without a stove or without an oven as an ADU, because I want to be able to count, so we have 200 ADUs in town, but if it doesn't have a stove or it doesn't have an oven, it doesn't become an accessory apartment. What they started doing in properties in town is they'll create a quote-unquote ADU, like in a pool house, but the outdoor kitchen is outdoor of the building, it's not inside the building. So it functions the same way. But those things are really nice, and they add a lot of value to the town, and it's a lot of things. The thing that we want to make sure is that they're all fire code compliant and building department compliant, because there's a big difference between a window that's a fireman window and a big window and a window that's not. Same with the construction of the building. And then the one last thing with regards to outdoor dining. When they were in last night with La Taqueria, I said to the gentleman who owns it, I said, you're all approved, you're ready to go. I said, when are you gonna open up your outdoor dining spot? He said, tomorrow. So, they might have it today.
All right,
Yeah.
Great.
So they're saying.
all right.
That's
Thank you
it.
for all of that.
You're
Thanks. Seth?
Yes, well, the RTM met Monday night, and we just had 2 items on the agenda, but the important one was the election of a representative to the Great Island Advisory Committee, and Mark Adeletta was elected, and he serves on the Rules Committee of the RTM now. Only been in the RTM about 20 years, I think. I don't want to date him, so, and he's also the chair of the Public Works Committee of the RTM, so I think he'll be great. I think the RTM is very, very pleased to have representation on that committee. The RTM supports the purchase and in principle, and we like to look at how money's spent, but I'll leave that alone. And we're just glad to be part of the act, you know. So May 5 still
Yep.
looking?
That's our scheduled closing, yeah.
Okay. So that's great. Yes, we are now getting ready to, the RTM will meet May 8 to approve the budget, I hope. So the Rules Committee meets Monday night to set the RTM agenda. Jen Charneski gave me a great breakdown. Makes it so easy when you don't have to try and figure out how to put the motions and the resolutions together to make it come out right, but we're looking good there. So that'll be, the budget will be on the agenda of the Rules Committee on Monday night, and, you know, we'll proceed. On a non-RTM note, I went to the CBI conference, Connecticut Business and Industry Association conference up in Hartford as part of my business, and I kept bumping into people saying, you know, we have a new representative up here. There's a lot of state legislatures who go to that, a lot of them. And so I said, you know, we have Tracy Mara, yeah, she's great. Oh, we love Tracy, so.
That's great.
She's making a splash early.
Great.
Thank you.
So that's about it for me.
Well, I think Tracy's sharing what's going on the state level. I think even people like Mark sharing what's going on in Great Island with the rest of the RTM. I think it's really important for our whole community to know what's happening out there, so.
It's nice for everybody else to know what's happening here too, which
Yeah.
I think is,
Yeah,
it's a lot to be
terrific.
proud of.
Yeah.
I did, on that note, I did speak to, there's a new director of, I think, economic development that works for the governor. Was that right?
I don't know.
Okay, when we did the groundbreaking for Corbin District, the
Oh,
person was there.
right.
That person got changed, and there's a new person. And the new person came in, you know, probably super qualified, but they had no idea what we're doing in Darien. So what the plan was, and it was kind of my idea going way back when, and you're definitely involved too, is we want to give that person a driving tour with probably
Great
Monica
idea.
and yourself, and take them around town and say, this is what we're doing, this is what we did, and this is what we're going to do,
Okay.
to see what's happening.
Okay.
That person, that position of the person, when we had an issue with the post office not getting out of the building when they were supposed to, was integral in getting them to move up the dime.
Okay.
So the people who are going to be involved was the state, I call them the Hartford delegation, which is I think the 5 of, you know, our representatives, Monica, and then whoever else could take us around. But if we can get that done,
Okay.
that would be great, because I've tried to do that from the bottom up, starting with, you know, not you or your predecessor to go up to the governor's office. I think this way it might come from the governor and saying to those people, you have to go.
Great.
So if we could pull that off this summer, that would be great.
Let's talk a little bit more about that then.
Steve, that was the fellow that came to the Corbin groundbreaking, right? Yeah, I'm blanking on his name.
But he
Yeah.
has a new person that has his spot.
Right.
And that new person didn't have any idea that what the great things we're doing here.
Right. Okay.
See, what was that job title?
It was the Director of Economic Development for the state of Connecticut. I think it's a governor's appointee.
Thank you.
Jill? Okay. We are, the Board of Ed is pleased to have its budget through the Board of Finance process. We look forward to being part of the RTM process coming up. In the meantime, we are actually evaluating our portion of the overall budget process. Our discussion will continue at tomorrow's Finance Subcommittee meeting, and that will be followed by a full board discussion at our next meeting on Tuesday, the 25th. We have 4 primary goals of this evaluation. The first is to reorganize our meeting calendar to ensure that our discussion of goals and objectives, policy, program issues are happening earlier in the season, and that are, as much as we can control it, not getting embedded in the budget discussion so that we can separate policy, program from finance as best we can. There's always some overlap, but that's the first goal. The second 2 goals have to do with our touch points with other boards, the first, and government bodies. The first is to manage and streamline the budget-related question and answer process. Our administration received over 240 questions from everybody involved in the process. It was quite a bit. There was a fair amount of redundancy. So we're just looking at that process, trying to come up with, we're just looking to increase the efficiency and to decrease the redundancy. We may not have a specific answer, but that's part of, right this minute, but that's part of our goal. The third goal is to to look at meaningful dialogue with our fellow bodies, making sure that we are engaged at the right time and in the right way, are getting the right information from particularly Board of Finance and RTM as we go. The fourth goal is forecasting. We want to improve our 5-year forecasting. We had one going. It wasn't really all that meaningful. We'd scrapped it in the interim, but now we, partly is due to requests and partly because we need to do it, we'll be looking at our forecasting. When I say these are our 4 goals and I say that it's happening over the next week, that said, we're not trying to come up with every answer in the next 5 to 10 days. We're really just trying to initiate the conversation, get it started. However, that first goal I mentioned of changing the calendar, that does impact members who may want, of either anybody that wants to opine on policy or program. So it's important for fellow bodies to be aware that they may need to pay attention and be engaged if they want to participate in those discussions earlier in the process. Folks may need to start paying attention long before October, November, and more, even starting as early as June, the end of June, when we'll be talking about our goals and objectives for the year.
So that calendar will be published when?
We'll be working on it in the next couple of weeks, so we'll have a calendar to you, I think, by early May or the end of April.
Okay.
Okay.
So okay. Because we'll make sure that the committees are
Yes.
on it. Yep.
Yes. And John Cini, who's our Finance Subcommittee Chair, has been in active discussion with Jack Davis of F&B and Ed
I'll
Washeka.
bet he has, yes.
Yes, and Ed Washeka of Education. Second big thing the board is looking at is we're hiring a new assistant superintendent of curriculum. Dr. Chris Tranberg, who was in that role, has accepted a role with a superintendency in Branford. Congratulations to him. He'll be staying through the end of the school year, which is the end of June, but we need somebody new. So we're appointing a search committee at our meeting on the 25th and hoping to appoint someone to that role by mid-May. That's the goal. I'm sure you all remember, among our primary priorities for this year were mental health, security, facilities, the teacher's contract, and communication. We have updates on a couple of those. Dr. Alicia Dadd, who is our Director of Mental Health, did start in mid-March. She'll be at our upcoming meeting on the 25th to give a 30, 60, 90-day look at what she's seen so far and talk about what she's planning for the future. There were a few questions that were outstanding, coming out of the budget season. I'm not sure that she's going to answer all of that as early as this Tuesday, but we'll be talking about what she's looking at in the coming days. On security, our Director of Security also started around the same time as Dr. Dadd in mid-March, and our SSOs went into each of the elementary schools on Monday. So that is officially launched, and welcome to all of those folks. We're glad to have them. are the third priority facilities. Of course, you know Ox Ridge is up and running. Any of you guys, or it's been up for a while, but the second portion is also that construction is ongoing. It's looking great for anybody who was able to do the tour. The gym is really exciting, and the library will be as well. On HHR, as Monica mentioned, we are looking for, and thank you for saying something, we are indeed looking for up to 2 more people. Desired expertise could include general knowledge of construction management or specific building expertise in any of the relevant areas or trades. That could be building construction, mechanical, electrical, other systems, or general experience with project timelines, change order approvals, budgets, and issue resolution in another industry, someone who just understands that process. Because there might be people in the public listening, I'll go on and say the time commitment is likely to be 1 to 2 evening and 1 to 2 day meetings per month as we move into construction. It hasn't been many day meetings up to this point, but we're planning to put shovels in the ground in July. So construction is slated to begin in July and to be completed by the fall of 2025. This spring, we'll be going out to bid. We did put a first bid out for some switchgear that has a very long lead time, and we've received those numbers back. But our main set of bids go out April 28th. It's the target date. We're going to bid Hindley and Royal first with a 2-week lag for Holmes.
With regards to that, because
Yeah.
Chris Price did ask about the people, have you reached out to, I just said Lou Giswaldi? Lou Giswaldi was the guy that
Yeah.
headed up the fields.
Did the fields.
His son works at CBRE,
Okay,
and his brother does construction.
okay,
I'm 90% sure he's in town. He's a
Okay.
great guy.
okay.
He
We
was
can
he was a
ask.
big DAF guy.
Yes, I remember.
Who should people reach out to, you or directly to the Board of Selectmen in terms of who appoints them?
Good question. They're, of course, appointed by the Board of Selectmen, but we've found that in the interim, Chris Price, that my co-chair, and I are more than happy to sit down and have a coffee first if they'd like to really understand the work, talk a little bit more casually, and then we're happy to direct them with their resume to Linda. And then, yes, it would be an interview with the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen would do the appointing.
If you'd send me a copy of that description, I'll get it out to the RTM.
Absolutely, yes. I am not sure if there's an application on the website.
I put up under news your description that you sent, so
Okay.
Seth, if people looked under news on the homepage, it tells you all of those things that were just listed about the number of meetings and the qualifications.
Okay.
And I think I linked it to the common application is right there.
Thank you.
Can you
I
take
can
Nick
send
out
an
of
application
retirement?
out too. I mean,
We're going to ask Nick if he wants to come out of retirement.
Absolutely.
I'll ask him.
Please. And the last thing about HHR is we are looking at when to come and just update folks. We have put ourselves in the calendar for the Board of Selectmen for early July because all the bids will have come in and we'll be able to, give an update of where we are. Given the RTM meeting schedule, if you all are interested, Seth, perhaps early fall after construction has begun. And again, we'll know where we came in with all the bids.
And Jill, I did sit next to Ed Washek at the RTM meeting and mention this, and education would totally be on board if you wanted to go speak with them.
Okay,
And
wonderful.
I mentioned September.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and that's my update. Thank you all. I guess while I'm still here, and thank you, of course, to Linda and Kate and Jen, who are the financial and the logistics backbone, of course, to the school district. Those folks are unseen in terms of the work that they do, so while we're saying thank yous.
Joel, I saw they announced a transition of the SRO from the middle school to the high school and some changes there as well.
Yes, correct. So the SRO at the high school is becoming a detective, a youth detective with the police force, so he
Crazy
will
work about
be still engaged with our youth. Yes, the SRO at the middle school, thank you, is moving up to the high school, and then we're getting a new SRO at the middle school. All very exciting. We're thrilled to have those folks in continued connection with our youth community.
And I think your floater, the SRO floater,
Yes,
is domiciled at the Middlesex School now. So,
in the interim.
that's, I think, his spot anyway, because he works 7 days a week or 5 days a week. So there is somebody at the middle school
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
Good point.
There's somebody at every single school
Now.
all the time.
Mhm.
And I know the SROs, the SSOs started April 1st for their training, and they had to
Yes.
come back from their NCAA Final Four trip.
Oh, did
April
they?
1st, they were.
Oh, well,
And they're UConn
training's
fans.
important. cannot underemphasize the importance of training.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Any other questions in general? Or thoughts? Okay. If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second?
Everyone, everyone seconds.
These are my favorite meeting of the week, so.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
All those in favor, sorry. Unanimous, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Stand adjourned.